What's up, guys? Zebradamus here, and today I have another commentary for you guys. Today is going to be about competitive games, what makes them competitive, and what makes competitive games successful. The gameplay is just MLG game countdown CTF back from MLG V6 test settings. So I hope you guys enjoy that. It's pretty decent. I went like plus 17, I think. So, like I said, hope you guys enjoy that. But by definition, a competition is anything where two opposing forces are going at it in order to win or overcome the other. So basically, anything where two or more people or a group of people are going against another group of people, um, are going against each other and are trying to win can be competitive. So pretty much any video game can be competitive. Any sport can be competitive. You can thumb wrestling can be competitive if it wanted to be. Um, However, these different competitions require different skill sets, right? Just like different genres of games require different skill sets, right? Like you don't need to know how to aim and shoot in a strategy game. You do need to know where to click, etc., what units to move, what units to build, stuff like that. So they require different skill sets, but saying something takes no skill is one of the most stupidest things ever. If you have ever in your entire life said this takes no skill, you are stupid. It might take very little skill, it might take a different skill from something else, but nothing takes no skill, alright? So, let me just clear that up right there. So the first thing that really makes a competitive game so competitive is its community, right? So, if people aren't playing it, how is it going to be competitive? That makes absolutely no sense. And generally, communities with bigger populations are tend to be more competitive. Don't believe me? Look at StarCraft and League of Legends. They have huge populations, along with many other factors that I'm going to get to later on in the video. But League of Legends and StarCraft 2 are the two most successful competitive games out there right now. Like you cannot argue it. Like do not try to argue that with me. They are. It's a simple fact, and they have pretty big communities. Another example is Call of Duty. Call of Duty has the hugest community out of any other game because it is the most popular and most played game out there right now. And that is the main and probably the only reason it's so competitive because so many people play it. Eventually, people get better than others, and they're like, hey, I'm tired of these boring pub matches. Let me go find some competition. And that's why I think it's really the only reason Call of Duty is competitive because its community is so huge. Once people get good at get at pubs, they want to go have some competition, and there's nothing wrong with that. But realistically, if Call of Duty had a smaller community, I don't think it would be like as nearly as competitive as it is right now. So community is a huge driving factor of whether or not of a good competitive game. It just is like, and in particular the size of the community. But other things like involved with community are like whether or not the community is nice to each other. I mean, you're gonna have trolls and douchebags in almost every community, but like, some communities are a lot more open-minded than others. Generally, some communities are more accepting of noobs than others, and these are good things, right? You don't want a community full of loudmouth douchebags that just bash on each other all the time, right? And generally, games with communities like that aren't as successful as others. So there's lots of important factors in the community, but the two biggest are going to be the size and the attitude of the community, right? So, if you have a nice community full of people who are genuine to each other, etc., they go on the forums and have nice conversations, not arguments all the times, that's going to lead to a generally better competitive game. The next thing that makes a game a good competitive game is going to have to be developer support, right? A game is not going to thrive without developer support. If the developer puts out the game and says, here it is, enjoy it, we're not going to make any more changes to it, and we don't care what you have to say about it, then that's not good. Like, that really sucks. And a good example of a company that, like, cares about their community would be Riot in League of Legends. They're constantly putting out patches. They care what their community has to say. They're promoting esports events. Riot is an example of what developers want to be, right? So they make the game fun for casuals and they promote competition at the same time, right? And I think that's the reason why it's one of the most viewed and most successful competitive games because it has pretty much all the aspects that I'm going to talk about in this video. Everything that I say League of Legends has 9 times out of 10 in this video. So you need developer support, right? Like if the company doesn't care about esports, then why should you, right? Like It's a simple fact that you need developer support in order for a good competitive game to exist. Next is going to have to be the settings, and this is more directed towards Halo and games similar to it, and that's the settings, right? So there can't be a huge skill, not skill, but like huge differential between the Halo that a pro player is playing and the Halo that someone who just bought the game is playing, right? So pro players are playing no bloom, no sprint. There's only one armor ability, and you have to go pick it up, which is jetpack. They're playing forged maps. Uh, the weapons spawn in different locations from default. There's no shotgun and sword on countdown. Stuff like that. There's no plasma rifles. The sandbox is very limited. Stuff like that. Certain areas of the maps are blocked off, etc., etc. But the noob who just bought the game is playing the default version. They have bloom. They have sprint. You can spawn with different armor abilities. There's a sword, there's a shotgun, there's a plasma rifle. You can go up in space on zealots. There's all kind of stuff. And that really creates a huge differential between the community and creates a huge rift. Whereas in League of Legends and StarCraft, the pro player is playing the same thing as a noob who just bought the game is playing. And it's very easy for that noob to get into the settings that they already know. They don't have to learn whole new maps from the default playlist. And that's another reason why those games thrive so much, because default settings are competitive settings, and that's the way it needs to be. You should have customization, but you shouldn't have to change the game completely to play it competitively. The next thing is going to have to be a skill gap, right? So there has to be a very, 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 very wide difference between a pro and someone who just got the game. There has to be, right? Some games are larger, some games the skill gap is larger than others, but generally there just needs to be a huge difference between a pro player and an extremely skilled player and an average player and a below average player and someone who just bought the game. And then even within those there's skill gaps, right? So there's pro players who are at the very, very tip top, and then there's pro players who are at the bottom. Stuff like that. There needs to be a very wide and vast, huge skill gap in the game for it to be decently competitive. Now, Call of Duty might be the exception to this, in my opinion. Sorry to bash on Call of Duty. I just don't think it's a very skillful game, right? It wasn't built to be a skillful game, but it's still played competitively. Again, that goes back to its huge community. But back to the skill gap, the game needs to be easy to pick up, but extremely difficult to master. You know, that's what makes a great competitive game. So it's easy to pick up StarCraft, League of Legends, Halo, other games, Counter Strike, whatever your competitive game of choice may be. It's easy to pick up, or it should be easy to pick up for a noob, but it should be extremely difficult to master. If you're watching a pro player and you're not thinking to yourself, wow, this guy's incredibly good, then there's a problem. Right? You should be thinking, hey, he's good at this game, and I know it because you see the skill gap, right? You see him landing every shot almost every time. You see him getting overkill exterminations, etc. You see the skill gap. The skill gap should be there, and it should be noticeable. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. That leads me into my next topic, which is spectator friendliness. So, if I've never played this game, never heard of it, and I watch it, I need to understand what's going on, either with the help of casters, or a good interface, or even a good spectator mode, right? And the game has to be visually appealing, right? It can't be some grayness, and just the game can't look boring either. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. So, League of Legends is a good example of this. It has an awesome spectator mode. The spectator mode tells you how many kills each team has, how much gold each team has, how many turret kills or tower kills each team has, etc. And it tells you what items the players are building. It tells you how much experience they need to their next level and stuff like that. League of Legends spectator mode is awesome. The game has to be almost as fun to watch as it is to play, if not more, if not the same, right? The game needs to, like, watching the game and playing the game need to be near the same level in fun, right? Maybe one's more fun than the other, but they need to be near the same level of fun. There's absolutely no point of watching something that isn't entertaining in the slightest. And casters can bring some entertainment into streaming and watching a game, because casters generally to cast the game, you need to have a good knowledge of the game. You don't have to be a pro or anything, but you need to have an extensive and very well known knowledge of the game to cast. So therefore, you can tell people what's going on, let them know, even without a good spectator mode like League of Legends. So, that's another thing you need to consider, the casters. And even the way they cast and like how they cast, right? So some games can be casted better than others. Like for example, again, League of Legends and StarCraft, because those games are generally longer. You have more time to explain what's happening, why they made this decision, etc. And they can make someone who's new to the game understand what's happening. And the very last thing that a good competitive game needs is a good online ranking system, matchmaking system, stuff like that, right? The matchmaking system needs to promote competitiveness. It needs to put better players against better players. It needs to put the weaker players against other weaker players, etc., etc. And you need to be able to climb it, right? Like you need to be able to get your rank higher and higher and higher as high as you can, so where the best players are at the highest rank, and the worst players are at the lower ranks. This also gives you more of a reason to play. Why should I play a game when I'm not really achieving much from it? Sure, it's fun, but I'm gonna probably play that game longer if I have something worth achieving, which is a ranking system, right? Progression-based rank systems really they give you something to do, but they don't really promote competitiveness. I don't really have to be good at Call of Duty to get a 10th prestige, 20th prestige, 15th prestige, whatever. I do have to be good in order to get a level 50 in Halo. I do have to be good to reach Grandmasters in StarCraft. I have to be extremely good to do that. I do have to be good to get 2,000 plus elo in League of Legends. Stuff like that. Your rank system has to promote competitiveness, right? It takes, like, if it doesn't take very much skill to reach the highest level, then what's the point of even having it? Basically, all it does is give you something to do. But no, your rank system, matchmaking system, has to promote competitiveness. It can't pair amazing players against new players, because then the amazing players completely destroy the bad players, and the bad players don't think it's any fun when they're getting completely dominated and there's not much they can do about it. And isn't really having fun either, because he's going against bad players and it's pretty much a guaranteed win. If you know you're going to win from the beginning, that kind of takes a lot of the fun away from winning. You already know, if it's not pro, it has to go. Please leave me a like if you enjoyed the video. Maybe share some opinions down below. Deuces.